Love is a profound and often unpredictable journey, one that pulls us into its depths, challenges our perceptions, and forces us to confront parts of ourselves we may not have been prepared to face. For many men, falling in love is not just an emotional experience, but a complex internal struggle filled with contradictions, fears, and questions. The intensity of this feeling can be overwhelming, and at times it may lead to a retreat, a moment of distance, or even a temporary pullback from the relationship. But why does this happen? Why does he pull away when it seems like the connection is growing stronger? The answer lies in the deep-seated emotions and fears that men often navigate silently as they process their feelings of love and commitment. In this speech, we will explore the psychological and emotional dynamics that underlie a man's tendency to withdraw when he's falling for someone. We will look at 7 key signs that indicate he is secretly falling for you, each of which reveals the complexity of the male experience in relationships. From the fear of losing independence to the pressure of emotional intensity, these signs show that when a man pulls away, it often has less to do with a lack of feelings and more to do with his internal battles and the growth he's undergoing in the process of falling in love. As we dive into these key signs, we'll begin to unravel the mysteries of the male heart and understand that when a man pulls away, it's often his way of recalibrating, reflecting, and ensuring that his emotions align with the depth of commitment he's ready to make. And in understanding this process, we can learn to navigate relationships with empathy, patience, and a deeper appreciation for the complexities of love. 1. Emotional ambivalence. When a man is secretly falling for someone, he may experience emotional ambivalence, a complex and often contradictory mix of emotions that can confuse both him and the person he cares about. This ambivalence arises from the deep internal conflict between his growing affection and the fear of what that affection might mean. It's a state of simultaneous desire and hesitancy, where his feelings pull him in one direction, while his uncertainties pull him in another. At its core, emotional ambivalence is a natural response to significant emotional shifts. Love is a profound and transformative force. It challenges a person to rethink their priorities, their self-image, and even their sense of control. For a man who is used to guarding his emotions, this sudden influx of intense feelings can feel like an invasion of his inner world, a world he may have carefully protected for years. In moments when he seems to pull away, it's often not because he doesn't care or isn't interested. Quite the contrary. His retreat is a reflection of the depth of his feelings. He may withdraw to process what these emotions mean, how they align with his life goals, and whether he can fully embrace the vulnerability that comes with them. This internal tug-of-war can lead to behaviors that appear confusing or contradictory. One day he might seem deeply connected and attentive, the next he might seem distant and preoccupied. This ambivalence is not necessarily a sign of rejection. Rather, it's an indicator of how much the relationship matters to him. The weight of his emotions may overwhelm him, prompting a need for solitude to regain clarity and balance. During this time, he might question whether he's ready for the level of commitment his feelings demand or whether he has the emotional tools to sustain a meaningful connection. Understanding this ambivalence requires empathy and patience. It's crucial to recognize that his withdrawal isn't about pushing the other person away, but about finding the stability he needs to engage more fully. By allowing him the space to navigate his emotions without pressure, a stronger and more secure bond can ultimately emerge, one built on mutual respect and understanding. 2. Fear of vulnerability. Falling in love is one of the most profound emotional experiences a person can undergo. However, it comes with a significant demand: vulnerability. For many men, vulnerability feels like a double-edged sword. On one side, it promises deep connection, intimacy, and fulfillment. On the other, it exposes fears, insecurities, and past wounds. This duality creates a powerful internal struggle, particularly for men who have been conditioned to value strength, control, and emotional self-sufficiency. The fear of vulnerability often stems from societal norms and personal experiences. From an early age, many men are taught to suppress their emotions, equating vulnerability with weakness. Over time, this can create a rigid emotional armor that protects them from pain, but also limits their ability to connect deeply with others. Falling in love challenges this armor. It invites them to open up, share their feelings, and trust someone else with their emotional well-being. For a man who has spent years guarding himself, this can be a terrifying prospect. When a man begins to fall for someone, he may instinctively pull away, not because he lacks affection, but because he fears what that affection could require of him. Love demands authenticity and the courage to reveal parts of oneself that are often kept hidden. It's an inherently vulnerable act, and for someone who associates vulnerability with danger, be it emotional hurt, rejection, or loss of control, retreating becomes a way to self-protect. This fear is often compounded by past experiences. If a man has been hurt in previous relationships, he might carry emotional scars that amplify his hesitation. He may worry about being let down, betrayed, or not measuring up to the expectations of his partner. The closer he feels to someone, the more significant the stakes become. As his emotions intensify, so does his fear of what could go wrong. This can create a cycle of advance and retreat, where he steps closer to the relationship one moment only to pull back the next. Another dimension of this fear lies in the relinquishing of control. Love introduces unpredictability and a certain loss of independence. For men who value control over their lives and emotions, the idea of surrendering to the uncertainties of a relationship can feel destabilizing. They may fear that opening up will make them vulnerable not only to their partner, but also to their own emotions, which can feel overwhelming and difficult to manage. It's important to understand that this fear is not a reflection of a lack of interest or commitment, but rather a testament to how much the relationship means to him. His withdrawal is often a sign that he's grappling with the gravity of his emotions and the vulnerability they demand. For someone on the receiving end of this behavior, patience and reassurance are crucial. Giving him the time and space to confront his fears without pressure can create a safe environment for emotional growth. Over time, as trust builds, the fear of vulnerability can transform into a deeper sense of security, allowing both partners to connect on a more meaningful and authentic level. 3. Desire for independence. Independence is a deeply ingrained value for many men, representing autonomy, control, and self-reliance. It's often tied to their sense of identity and personal freedom. When a man begins to fall for someone, his growing emotions may challenge his desire for independence, creating an inner tension. This conflict can lead him to pull away, not out of disinterest or rejection, but as a way to reconcile his evolving feelings with his need for self-determination. Love has a way of reshaping priorities and shifting focus. A man who is falling in love may find himself thinking about his partner more than himself, considering her needs, dreams, and happiness in his decisions. While this shift can be exciting and fulfilling, it can also feel like a loss of the independence he has worked to cultivate. This can cause him to retreat temporarily, seeking space to regain a sense of balance and autonomy. For some men, independence is more than a value. It's a form of self-protection. Being independent allows them to maintain control over their lives, shielding them from emotional vulnerability and potential disappointment. Falling in love introduces an element of dependency as emotions deepen and the relationship becomes more significant. This new interdependence can feel destabilizing, as it challenges their self-image and brings up fears of losing themselves in the relationship. This tension is particularly evident in men who are highly goal-oriented or driven. They may worry that the time and energy required for a meaningful relationship could detract from their personal ambitions or disrupt the routines that give them a sense of stability. Even as they cherish their feelings for their partner, they may wrestle with concerns about whether they can balance love with their other priorities. This struggle often leads to moments of withdrawal as they assess how the relationship fits into their life's trajectory. Cultural and societal expectations can also amplify this desire for independence. Many men are raised to see themselves as providers and protectors, roles that emphasize strength, stability, and self-reliance. Falling in love with its inherent vulnerability and emotional reliance can feel like a departure from these ideals. As a result, a man might pull back to reassert his independence, ensuring he doesn't lose his footing in the process of falling for someone. It's important to note that this withdrawal is rarely about a lack of affection or commitment. Instead, it's an attempt to preserve a sense of self within the relationship. Independence doesn't mean he values his partner any less. It simply reflects his need to maintain a connection to his individuality. For the partner of a man, navigating this tension, understanding, and patience are essential. Giving him space to process his feelings and maintain his independence can help him feel secure in the relationship. Over time, as trust grows and he sees that his independence isn't threatened by love, he's likely to embrace the relationship more fully, finding a balance between autonomy and connection that allows both partners to thrive. 4. Pressure of expectations. Love, while exhilarating, brings with it a set of expectations that can feel overwhelming, especially for someone falling deeply for the first time, or after a significant period of emotional independence. When a man begins to fall in love, he may sense the unspoken or explicit expectations associated with the relationship. These can range from societal norms and family pressures to the partner's hopes for the future. As these pressures mount, pulling away may feel like the only way for him to regain clarity and control over his emotional world. Expectations in love often arise naturally. As the bond deepens, questions about the relationship's direction become inevitable. Where is this going? Is he ready for the commitment it might entail? These questions can weigh heavily on a man who is navigating his feelings. Love often hints at permanence, at building something significant together. For someone who has valued his freedom or carefully constructed his life around personal goals, the thought of adjusting his path to include someone else can feel daunting. In some cases, societal pressures amplify this feeling. Society often casts men as providers or protectors in relationships. These roles can carry an implicit demand for financial stability, emotional strength, and long-term reliability. Even if these pressures aren't voiced explicitly by a partner, a man may impose them on himself, feeling he needs to measure up before committing fully. This self-imposed standard can lead him to withdraw, seeking time to ensure he's prepared to meet the expectations he believes come with love. The partner's expectations, whether real or perceived, can also play a significant role. When falling in love, a man may interpret moments of intimacy or conversations about the future as signs that his partner is hoping for more of formal commitment, a family, or shared long-term goals. While these are natural desires in many relationships, they can feel like an enormous responsibility to someone still processing the depth of his feelings. His withdrawal, in this case, is often less about rejecting the future and more about needing time to assess whether he's ready to embrace it fully. Past experiences can further intensify this pressure. If a man has experienced a relationship where expectations were unclear, unspoken, or unfairly placed, he may carry those memories into his new connection. He may worry about repeating past mistakes or disappointing his partner. This fear of failure can create an invisible barrier, leading him to pull away when expectations feel too heavy or undefined. Another layer of pressure comes from internal expectations. Many men have a vision of how they want to approach love, whether it's being fully in control, having certain milestones achieved before committing, or feeling emotionally prepared to give their all. Falling in love, however, rarely adheres to a predetermined script. When reality doesn't align with their expectations, it can cause stress, doubt, and hesitation. Pulling away becomes a way to realign with their internal goals or recalibrate their approach to the relationship. It's critical to understand that pulling away under the pressure of expectations is not necessarily a reflection of his feelings for his partner. In many cases, it's a sign that he takes the relationship seriously and doesn't want to move forward unless he can meet those expectations with sincerity and confidence. His withdrawal is often an attempt to create space to think, assess, and plan how he can approach the relationship in a way that feels authentic and sustainable. For his partner, navigating this behavior requires empathy, patience, and open communication. Providing reassurance that the relationship doesn't have to move at a predefined pace can help alleviate some of his fears. Additionally, creating an environment where both partners feel comfortable discussing their expectations openly can prevent misunderstandings and build trust. Over time, as he processes the weight of these expectations, he's likely to return with a clearer sense of purpose, ready to engage more deeply and confidently in the relationship. 5. Processing the relationship's meaning. Falling in love is a transformative experience. It shifts perspectives, alters priorities, and challenges the way an individual views their life and future. For men, this shift often leads to a deep and personal period of reflection. Processing the meaning of the relationship, what it represents, where it's headed, and how it fits into their life can be both exhilarating and daunting. This process can cause a man to temporarily pull away, not because of disinterest, but because he needs space to navigate the profound emotional and intellectual journey that love inspires. When a man begins to fall for someone, he may start to see his life in a new light. Questions about the relationship's potential often come to the forefront. Is this the person I want to build a future with? What does this relationship mean for my personal goals, values, and dreams? Am I ready for the responsibilities that come with this level of commitment? These are not trivial considerations. For many men, Answering them requires introspection and time. The significance of a relationship often challenges a man to rethink his priorities. A life that once revolved around personal pursuits, career goals, hobbies, or friendships may need to expand to include a partner's needs, dreams, and aspirations. While this expansion is natural and often rewarding, it can feel overwhelming. Love asks for compromises and adjustments, and a man who values his independence or has a clear vision of his future may need time to reconcile these changes. Pulling away during this phase is not about rejecting the relationship. It's about understanding its place in his life and ensuring he can embrace it fully when the time comes. Cultural and personal values play a significant role in this processing period. For some men, the meaning of a relationship is tied to deeply held beliefs about partnership, family, and responsibility. Falling in love may bring these values into focus, prompting a man to question whether he is aligned with his partner on these fronts. These reflections can be deeply personal, touching on fears, hopes, and past experiences. Withdrawal during this time often signals a need to explore these questions without external influence, allowing him to arrive at answers that feel genuine and considered. Another layer of complexity arises when past relationships come into play. A man who has experienced heartbreak, betrayal, or unfulfilled expectations may approach new love with caution. The intensity of his feelings may remind him of previous experiences, causing him to pause and ensure he is not repeating old patterns. This reflection can be painful and requires emotional bandwidth, which might explain moments of distance or detachment. Additionally, men often process emotions differently than women. While some may prefer to talk through their thoughts with their partner, others may retreat into themselves, relying on solitude to make sense of their feelings. This withdrawal is not a sign of indifference, but a reflection of how they cope with emotional complexity. It is during this quiet time that they consider the relationship's meaning, evaluating its significance in their life and the steps they need to take to honor its potential. For a man in this phase, the fear of misinterpreting or mishandling the relationship's meaning can be paralyzing. Love is not just about emotions. It's about envisioning a shared future and committing to the steps necessary to build it. The weight of these considerations can cause him to step back as he ensures he's ready to approach the relationship with clarity and sincerity. As his partner, understanding and patience are crucial during this period, it's important to recognize that his withdrawal is not a reflection of his feelings for you, but an indication of how much he values the connection. Providing space while remaining open to communication can create an environment of trust, allowing him to process his emotions without fear of judgment or pressure. When a man has the time and space to process the relationship's meaning, he is more likely to return with a deeper sense of commitment and purpose. This reflective period, though challenging, is often the foundation for a relationship built on mutual respect, understanding, and intentionality. 6. Avoidance of emotional intensity. Love by its very nature is an intense experience. It evokes powerful emotions that can uplift, inspire, and even overwhelm for many men, especially those unaccustomed to navigating the depths of their feelings. The sheer intensity of falling in love can feel destabilizing. The emotional highs and lows, the vulnerability it demands, and the fear of losing control over their emotions can prompt a man to pull away as a means of self-regulation. This retreat is not a rejection of the relationship or his partner, but rather a coping mechanism to manage the overwhelming waves of emotional intensity. Emotional intensity often manifests as an overwhelming closeness, a sense of being deeply connected to another person on levels that transcend logic or explanation. While this can be exhilarating, it can also feel like uncharted territory, especially for men who are more accustomed to maintaining emotional equilibrium. The rapid shift from independence to profound connection can be disorienting. He may feel as though he's losing his sense of self or being swept away by emotions he doesn't fully understand or know how to control. For many men, this fear of losing control is deeply ingrained. From a young age, societal norms often encourage men to suppress their emotions, equating stoicism with strength. When love introduces a flood of feelings, desire, vulnerability, joy, fear, and attachment, it can clash with this ingrained ideal. The intensity of these emotions may feel like a loss of the control they've worked so hard to maintain, leading to a retreat as they attempt to restore balance. The fear of emotional intensity is often heightened by the unpredictability it brings. Love, after all, is not a linear experience. It's marked by moments of bliss, uncertainty, and even conflict. For a man falling in love, The unpredictability of his feelings can make him feel as though he's on unstable ground. The closer he gets to his partner, the more he opens himself up to the possibility of pain, whether it's rejection, disappointment, or the vulnerability of being truly seen. This realization can create an instinct to withdraw as a way to protect himself from potential emotional turbulence. Another factor that amplifies this avoidance is the realization of how much is at stake. When emotions run high, so do the risks. A man who is deeply invested in a relationship may become acutely aware of what he stands to lose. The closer he feels to his partner, the more he fears losing her, or making a mistake that could jeopardize the bond. This heightened awareness of the stakes can make him hesitant, causing him to step back as he navigates the weight of his feelings. The avoidance of emotional intensity is not necessarily a sign of emotional immaturity. Rather, it reflects a need to process and regulate these feelings in a way that feels safe and manageable. For many men, withdrawal is a way of finding equilibrium. They step back to gain perspective, to process their emotions without external pressure, and to ensure that their actions align with their intentions. This period of retreat allows them to regain a sense of control before re-engaging with the relationship in a more grounded and confident way. It's also important to consider that emotional intensity doesn't always stem from the relationship itself. External factors, stress at work, personal challenges, or unresolved past traumas can amplify the emotional load he's carrying. When love adds to this already heavy emotional burden, it can feel like too much to handle all at once. Pulling away in these moments is often a sign that he's trying to manage the combined weight of his emotions rather than an indication of his feelings toward his partner. For his partner, understanding this behavior requires empathy and patience. It can be tempting to interpret his withdrawal as a lack of interest or commitment, but in most cases, it's a sign that he's deeply affected by the relationship and needs time to process its impact. Pressuring him to open up or demanding immediate answers may inadvertently push him further away. Instead, offering reassurance, creating a space of trust, and respecting his need for solitude can help him feel secure enough to confront his emotions. Over time, as trust and communication grow, the avoidance of emotional intensity can diminish. A man who feels safe and supported in his relationship is more likely to confront his feelings openly, sharing his fears and vulnerabilities without the need to retreat. This transformation takes time and often requires the patience of both partners. The avoidance of emotional intensity is a testament to how profoundly love affects the individual. It's not a sign of weakness or disinterest, but rather an indication of how seriously he takes the relationship. By understanding and respecting this phase, both partners can work toward a connection that is not only passionate, but also stable, secure, and resilient in the face of emotional challenges. 7. Navigating fear of commitment. Commitment is often seen as the cornerstone of a serious relationship, representing stability, trust, and a shared future. However, for some men, the idea of commitment can evoke fear and hesitation, even when they deeply care for their partner. This fear isn't necessarily about the person they're with. Instead, it often stems from internal conflicts, past experiences, or societal expectations. For a man who is falling in love, the realization that the relationship might demand long-term commitment can trigger an instinct to pull away. This reaction is not a rejection of his feelings, but rather a response to the weight of what commitment represents. Fear of commitment is multifaceted with roots that vary from person to person. For some men, it's tied to the fear of losing freedom. Commitment often requires significant life adjustments, such as prioritizing a partner's needs, making joint decisions, and potentially redefining personal goals. For someone who has enjoyed independence or a life focused on individual ambitions, these changes can feel intimidating. He may worry that committing fully will mean giving up the autonomy he values, even if the relationship offers its own rewards. For others, fear of commitment stems from the uncertainty of the future. Committing to someone means investing emotionally, mentally, and often financially in a shared life. This investment carries risks. What if things don't work out? What if the relationship changes in ways he didn't anticipate? What if he fails to meet his partner's expectations? These questions can loom large, especially for men who prefer predictability or struggle with anxiety about the unknown. Pulling away in these moments is often a way to gain clarity and protect himself from potential disappointment or failure. Another dimension of this fear lies in past experiences. A man who has been hurt in previous relationships may carry those wounds into his current connection. If he has faced betrayal, rejection, or the breakdown of a relationship he once believed in, he might approach commitment with caution. Even if his current partner shows no signs of repeating those patterns, the emotional scars from the past can resurface. These lingering fears can create a barrier to fully embracing love, causing him to retreat as he processes his emotions. Societal pressures can also play a significant role in a man's fear of commitment. Men are often subjected to conflicting messages about relationships. On one hand, they are encouraged to be strong, self-sufficient, and career-focused. On the other, they are expected to build and maintain stable relationships. Balancing these expectations can be challenging, especially when falling in love disrupts the life he has worked to establish. The societal pressure to have it all together before committing can amplify feelings of inadequacy, leading him to step back until he feels more prepared. Commitment also brings with it the fear of change. A serious relationship inevitably shifts the dynamics of a man's life from his social circle to his daily routines. For men who value consistency and predictability, these changes can feel destabilizing. Even positive changes, like spending more time with a partner or planning a future together, require adjustments that can be emotionally taxing. Pulling away allows him to process these changes at his own pace, ensuring that he can adapt without feeling overwhelmed. It's important to note that fear of commitment doesn't mean a man doesn't care about his partner or the relationship. In fact, the opposite is often true. The very fact that he's pulling away suggests that he's taking the relationship seriously and grappling with the implications of a long-term connection. His retreat is often a sign that he's reflecting deeply on what the relationship means to him and how he can approach it responsibly and authentically. For his partner, navigating this phase requires patience and understanding. Pressuring him to commit or interpreting his hesitation as rejection can create tension and misunderstanding. Instead, fostering open communication can help uncover the root of his fears. By discussing what commitment means to both partners and addressing concerns together, the relationship can move forward in a way that feels secure and mutual. It's also essential to provide reassurance without compromising personal boundaries. Letting him know that his feelings are valid while expressing your own needs can create a balanced dynamic. For example, acknowledging his fears while affirming your commitment to the relationship can help him feel supported rather than pressured. If you liked it, then hit the like button and sub my channel as an act of appreciation.